Hello, good people. This is we're gonna call this Dr. Earl Live with Junebug right now, and we've been wanting to do this for a while now. I know I expressed it, you expressed it as well. We got Junebug here, as you could tell here, and and for this episode, we're doing something about that we cherish a lot, which is the music of the 1980s.
That's right.
Yeah, and the reason we cherish it a lot is because we were in talks of that before. Said the music back then was a lot more pure. It was a lot more strength. It was a lot more. It was a lot more forward. It was a lot good, whether it's hip hop or rock and roll, heavy metal, or pop music back then,
Yeah.
or R&B. A lot of that good stuff back then was a lot more genuine. It was a lot more. It was a lot more respectable than some of the stuff that
Yes.
we have currently nowadays on the radio, whether it's
Yeah.
in the 2000s or the 1990s.
And a lot of that music from the 80s, it personifies so well of what the world was at that time.
Yeah,
Like it was in mainstream media, even in sports. Like you could just hear and like in the stadiums and the crowds. It's just like it had that 80s vibe. Like you know it's the 1980s.
yeah. There was like the haircuts, the styles, the everybody girl trying to dress like Madonna back then, the mullets and everything else.
Cyndi Lauper haircuts.
Oh yeah, I think that was one of the original hairstyle. You see all these kids, with their when they're like Ruby Riot and all these other goth rock kids
Yeah.
out there with some of their shaved sides. I think Cyndi Lauper may have been a predecessor to that, may have been a pioneer of that particular style there, because
And
nobody had that particular style back then until she came out with that video featuring the late Captain Lou Albano.
yeah, the Goonies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this was Girls Just Want to Have Fun. That came out in 1983, prior to the Goonies song there.
Yes.
And of course, it featured Captain Lou Albano, who was the
Yeah.
manager, who was the he was like considered a world's record wrestling manager. Him, almost all the tag teams that he managed were tag team champions, and surprisingly, he was with the WWF
Yeah.
back then,
That's
years before it became WWE. So he's definitely in the WWE Hall of Fame. I presume. If he is he or not? I'm not. I don't think he was, or was he included inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame?
yes. He was class of
Not
2004.
nice. That's good to
Yep.
hear.
Yep.
Because
And go ahead.
yeah, he was also a manager for a band called NRBQ, meaning New Rhythm and Blues Quartet. He was a manager for a while, and back then he was like one of the biggest heel managers of all time. Until later on he turned babyface, and going against the likes of other managers like Bobby the Brain Heenan, rest in peace to that guy, Mr.
Yeah.
Fuji, Luscious Johnny Valent. It's kind of awkward. I have to say the wrestling back then was unique as well because the WWF, the NWA,
Mm,
wrestling back then was original. The kayfabe was still flowing through very well. People were keeping that in stride. People nowadays when you see a heel wrestler, you know he's not a real heel in real
mm.
life, and that he's able to take a picture with you because they now know that it's all fake and shit.
Yeah, it's like K-Fizz did, and that all started with the social media outbursts.
No, actually, it started. Actually, John Stossel and his show 2020 that he was appeared on actually done that. I don't know if you remember this. John Stossel was working for ABC News at that time, and he did a special report on pro wrestling. And one wrestler named Eddie Mansfield, who was disgruntled with the WWF and how he was treated, decided
Yeah,
to expose the business on how it was done, how it was performed, how the moves are exactly calculated and performed there, including blading, how it's everything is done, And a lot of the people within the business, whether it's WWF, NWA, AWA, they were pissed at him. But then again, he kind of like opened up another door there. Now you recall the sex scandal in the 1990s when the WWF was being accused of all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently Eddie Mansfield opened that door when he revealed that one of the executives there wanted to sleep with him. Mansfield said no, and they decided to fire him, take away everything from him. And I guess that was his Mansfield's payback for the WWF for what they did. Of course, now
Mm,
years later, with Pat Patterson coming out as gay, we now realize that hey, that shit was true.
yeah. Well, wasn't that on like like, there was a talk show back in the early '90s? He came on to expose Vince McMahon and all of them.
Yes, I remember. I think it was Morton Downey Jr.
Yeah, that one.
Morton Downey Jr. I used to watch him all the time, man. He was like, this was years before Rush Limbaugh. I know Dr. David Schultz was there. He was defending the business. He threw a drink in Mansfield's face. Oh, he didn't want to work. He didn't want to do this and that. And precisely, I don't know if you remember this incident here. Towards the end of the report, Stossel was asking Dr. David Schultz few questions, and Stossel said wrestling is fake. That pissed off Schultz, and Schultz immediately smacked Stossel a few times in his ears,
Wow.
giving him now permanent ear damage. It's right on the YouTube. Definitely check it out there. He eventually did sue the WWF, and of course, later left ABC News a few years later, and now he does stuff for Fox News Network. But that really fucked up Schultz's career. He was
Didn't
eventually.
didn't Dark Side of the Ring do an episode of that? The slap
Yes,
heard
they
around the
did.
world. I
Yes,
gotta check that out because I
yes,
didn't
it
get to see
is.
that episode.
Yeah, definitely. And as I mentioned, that costed Schultz's career with the company. I guess he went to do some independent wrestling shows here soon after. I guess he now works as a bounty hunter.
Really?
Yeah, he
Oh
does. I
shit.
remember he revealed that back in on the Morton Downey Jr. show, catching scummy criminals. He still does it to this day.
Oh man.
Yeah, and you know what? You got to remember, was a badass back then. He was a nasty motherfucker. He was.
Wasn't he like compared to like the early Stone Cold?
Well, he was someone like that. He may have been, but the difference is, Stone Cold became the biggest baby face around the 1990s, whereas Schultz still remained a massive heel.
A massive heel, yeah.
Yeah, he was. Of course, after his release from the WWF, Roddy Piper became the biggest heel during that period of time, saying
Or
I hate my MTV, and all these people like Duran, D. Snyder from Twisted Sister, came out against him, be doing promos on him. Of course, that would later be the start of the franchise known as WrestleMania, 1985, in Madison Square
yeah.
Garden. Everything was there. Everybody was there. Joan Rivers. I think Joan Rivers was involved. Liberace was involved as well.
Liberace,
Yes,
Cyndi Lauper.
yes. This Rivers,
Uh,
who was managing Wendy Richter, who was
yeah.
who won the WWF Women's Championship on the Fabulous Moolah
Yep.
around that time. So fits to say that Cyndi Lauper gave the WWF particularly, a big boost in the media status. People started buying, getting into wrestling now thanks to Cyndi Lauper when you think about it, and Captain Lou
Yeah.
Albano. Rest in
Well,
peace, dude.
weren't they airing matches on MTV? And that's what Vince thought came up with the idea of like the music and wrestling.
As I said, the rock and wrestling thing came about because many times, because of Cyndi Lauper and Captain Lou Albano. But if you look on Google Images and type in Deborah Harry and Andre the Giant, it was a cover of a wrestling magazine, and Debbie Harry, short as fuck compared to Andre the Giant. I think it's on Google Images. I remember looking that up a couple times in the past there. And of
Oh,
course,
she was very pretty back then.
I am. I don't know how she is now. Now, of course, The 1980s saw the new music scene, as we know, with bands like, of course, leading the big leaders, Duran, um, Kaja Gugu, other new wave acts like there's a lot of new wave acts that didn't really get their push, but they should have back then. You know, the
Yeah,
hip hop scene was really starting to take off. The break dancing, Grandmaster Flash and Grandmaster
uh,
Melly Mel, and the
the
Furious
beat,
Five.
the break dancing, and just like
Yes,
it's just the
the
whole
movie.
vibe, man.
Yeah, the stuff like that. I remember there was Ice T. You know who he is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he did a song for the first Breaking soundtrack called Reckless. And it was not like the gangster hip hop stuff that he would do later on when he got signed to Sire Records a couple years later. This was a quite different. You know, it was like back then it was MC Ice T and DJ Glove on the turntables, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, it's kind of interesting to see how they all came about before their big break there into the gangster rap stuff there, which of course happened in 1990s, of course.
You think like when the NWA came out, they think that's when it all started?
Well, it may have. Well, some say it may have and may have not. But then again, Ice T debuted at his first record, Ryan Pace. I think it was in 1987. And he was exposing that side of L.A. that all the conservative politicians tried to high sweep under the rug, and Ice Cube did that as well with his first release after he left NWA. But it does seem to excuse me, it is safe to say that NWA were one of the first pioneers of gangster rap because
Yeah.
you know they were discussing all the things that were going on within the city streets of Compton, California.
So like letting out their frustrations through music.
Yeah, they
Like
have. Yeah, it's better. I mean, I think Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue said it best. You know, people should be thanking them for playing rock and roll instead of being out on the streets robbing liquor stores and beating up old ladies.
yeah.
You know, it's best, you know, to pick up a guitar and learn to play the dang thing, express your anger and frustration through the songs that you write.
It's just like the rap music from the early 80s, it was all about like sending messages and stuff.
Yeah,
So it had like a strong like
yeah.
message to people.
Yes, it would. Yes, definitely. For instance, we know the song "White Lines Don't Do It" by Grandmaster Melly Mel.
Yeah.
That was played continuously years after it came out at a nightclub in Roseville, Michigan called the Ritz. How many times it was played, I cannot even count. I remember, of course, you know, Iron Maiden had a lot of messages, a lot of stories in their songs. You know, Twisted Sister had a religious message in the song "Burn in Hell." Make your choice now, 'cause tomorrow will be too late.
Yeah.
And plus, yeah, you know, you got to give it up to Dee Snider. He wrote a lot about his personal experience with this growing up, and he detailed them all in some of the Twisted Sisters song, like "You Know You Want What We Got," because which is about jealousy, a jealous individual wanting
Yeah.
that what that other person wanted. Ozzy Osbourne had his record, "The Ultimate Sin," and the theme of that was nuclear destruction. The song "Killer of Giants" about the bomb being this suicide object. You know, the group Skinny Puppy, who I listened to, detailed that as well, and the song of theirs called "Second Tooth" on
Mm.
one of their albums from '87.
That
Nuclear war was like one of the biggest threats during that time. I remember war movies like War Games.
yeah. Full Metal Jacket.
Yes, you know, Platoon. You know, you probably play movies like Hamburger Hill, which kind of like was their little. Here's the thing: when a movie becomes successful, like Platoon did back in '86, there's going to be followers. There's going to be copycats. Hamburger Hill was one of them. Uncommon Valor was another. I think did that come out in the '80s or in the '90s? I'm not too sure if I remember.
What, Hamburger Hill?
No, Uncommon Valor. I think that came out in the '80s. I think it was another war movie.
83.
Ah, yeah, there we go. Yeah, well, that was before Rambo. That was before Rambo 2 there.
Yeah,
Now, now, a lot of people, I remember veterans from that time were very upset at the movie, the second Rambo movie, because it was depicting just one man taking on the whole Vietnamese gang there, the underground, to free all the prisoners. That would later, of course, inspire Chuck Norris's franchise, Missing in Actions 1, 2, and 3. So, which pretty much was about the same thing there. Apparently,
yeah,
war was a big concern, and I guess movies like Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, the kids who see that kind of stuff, no doubt they were against the first Gulf War when that first occurred in early '91, because of what
yeah,
they saw in those movies, of the descriptions they heard in songs like Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight from Iron Maiden, Where Eagles Dare, on this battlefield, no one wins. You know, they listen to that, and next thing you know, that here comes this the Gulf War, the first one happening now, and of course they're going to be against it.
yeah.
Because what they have heard so many times in the past. And plus we also got to give credit to the movie Pink Floyd The Wall. I mean, the description of war that was portrayed in that movie was ultra dark. Ultra dark. You know.
And that came out in 1982.
Yes, I remember a couple years after the album came out, along with the tour and its support of it. The whole stage production there.
Yeah,
Yes, man, constantly. It fits. You know what? I gotta talk about that record for a second there. It fits to say that if you were a goth rock kid growing up, either the 80's or 90's, no doubt they relate to that album a lot, because a lot of the shit that happened to the main character Pink also happened to them. Not exactly like the same events, but there were a lot of times where they've lost parents from some sort of a war or some sort of a car accident. They had to deal with a disrespectful parent. They were often bullied and picked on by both teachers and the students at school. And they
yeah.
just have the disgruntledness towards the world around them. And they just want to assume a militia and take everybody out. And it fits to say that if you experience those kind of situations that Pink did in the album and in the movie, then definitely The Wall spoke for you. No doubt about that. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why that album is still iconic to this day.
And that's a movie for its time. Like, so dark for a movie that time. It was just,
It was like basically, it was resentment, anger, hostility, and the need to it was revenge, all served up on a silver platter, covered with the blood of the soldiers who fought during World War II. Definitely, because Roger Waters, the guy who wrote it, the bass player and singer, principal songwriter, his father died in the Second World War. And they never really got a chance to meet him. And I guess
yeah,
there was and some sort of a building named after his father's. I guess it was the Aaron Fletcher Waters, Institute or something like that. And of course, Roger was there to salute the father he never got to know. Yeah. So, what do you have? You said have a list of top 10 songs from the 1980s. You there? You want to give us?
All right, I got you. Number 10, I have "Don't You Forget About Me" by Simple Minds.
Oh yeah, 1980, The Breakfast Club.
Yeah, like in my opinion, arguably one of the greatest teenage movies ever made.
Yeah. Next song. You know what? We got to give it up to John Hughes, because
Yeah,
he
he
was
was my childhood, bro.
he was like he would come out with the most funkiest of comedy movies whether it's 16 Candles or Planes, Trains, and
Trains and
Automobiles.
Automobiles,
Yeah,
Dennis the Menace.
yep. And
um,
he could also come up with the most touching and respectable teenage dramas,
yeah,
whether it's The Breakfast Club or some
Home
kind of
Alone.
wonderful. Yes,
Home Alone has drama in it too,
yeah, it's
but
true. Yeah,
it's is it the comedy. He also wrote 101 Dalmatians, the first movie.
yeah. The live action movie.
Yeah,
Ah,
with
for Disney.
Jeff Daniels and I don't know who else was. I think who else was in there? Glenn Close.
Ah, I see. Yeah, definitely. You know, and sadly Hughes is no longer with us. He
Yeah,
died.
man.
Yeah. So everybody from Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, and all the Mike Anthony Michael Hall were definitely there to. They probably miss working with him, no doubt.
Yeah, he was
Everyone.
just so funny, and like I always get his sarcasm in his movies. I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, that's typical John Hughes.
Yeah.
Oh, and how could we forget Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Oh yes, definitely. That's one of the big
Yeah,
ones. That song helped the Beatles cover up "Twist and Shout" get back on the charts. By the way, because of
yeah,
that, And it's kind of funny because that song was originally recorded by the Isley Brothers years before that.
really.
Yes. I'm not too sure
Shit,
a year it came out, but I remember the Beatles version being one of my favorites there. You got to give it up to the Beatles because while everybody was listening to black music but not minning it, the Beatles were out there praising black music. Hey, we like John Lee Hooker, Chuck Berry, and Muddy Waters, and we're not afraid to say it. That and Led Zeppelin as well.
yeah. Number 9 on my list, I got I Ran by a Flock of Seagulls.
Oh yeah, wow! I remember the video. You remember watching the video for that? You could see the camera, going around
Yeah,
and around. Apparently, what it was the I guess what it was. I'm not too sure how that was set up. I guess what it was is that I guess there was some sort of rotating merry-go-round type of dooflicky that they had there. It was covered with a saran wrap there. And I
yeah.
guess, but you could see in the mirrors the camera capturing every footage that's out there of all the band members. You know. And
That
I
was a
guess
great.
it
Go
was
ahead.
it was a great, it was a great video there.
And it was also featured in one of my favorite games of all time, Grand Theft Auto Vice
Uh,
City.
oh yeah, that which takes place in the 80's.
Yeah, so that's where I found my love for that era because like when I first played that game, I was only like 8 years old, and I just was introduced to this world of all this 80s shit, and then I just started watching a lot of the old 80s stuff. That's how I know all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Now today's, according to the people today, some of that stuff may be considered cheesy or some of the acting or the theme songs,
Yeah,
but then again, that was the style back then. Now let me also conclude that argument with this. All these kids with these piercings, their earlobes being engaged out there, all these
yeah,
stuff in their eyebrows, and their crazy ass fashions that they're wearing nowadays. You know, with the tongue piercings. Years later,
yeah.
when they grow up, they're going to realize, holy cow, I can't believe I had that many piercings in one eyebrow. I can't believe I pierced my tongue 3 times in a row. I can't believe I made my earlobes hang down to my shoulders here longer than to my hair. And I've seen some of that shit. You're gonna need plaques. You're gonna need surgery to get that repaired.
Just imagine when they age. Like, how is that gonna age well?
Yeah, I
It's just
know. That's the
like,
thing. That's the thing
like,
there. I cannot imagine how how you look 80 years old with your earlobes hanging down lower than your boobs.
like your fucking grandkids are gonna be afraid to even touch you.
They're gonna call you definitely Dumbo the elephant for shizzle there.
Fuck. It'll be like, what the fuck? I'm scared of Granny. I'm scared of Grandpa.
And oh, Granny's here. Let's play with her ear. Let's play jump rope with her earlobes there.
It's like,
Oh,
oh, can
these
I play with that? It's not a toy.
that's part of my ear. Well, it was part of your ear. It's something else now.
Oh my god! Like, oh, grandma, can I take this toy car and just see if it can go through the hole? That's like a fucking insult.
Yeah. I know. I hope that craze dies out pretty soon because I've seen too much damage done to the earlobe as a result.
Yeah,
And
I
when they, and
see
when they
that.
take and when they take that shit out, it looks horrendous.
And it's not even cute. Like, it's
No, it's
not.
it's not. It's like crap.
It's-
It looks like something dripping out of your ears when you think about it.
oh my gosh. Number 8, I have "Take on Me" by Aha.
Oh yeah, that was probably one of the first music videos out there to combine sketch animation with real life. It's mostly sketch animation with real life footage there. And I guess I was in 1985. I remember.
Yeah. Number 7, I have "Come On Eileen" by Kevin Rowland.
Yeah, Dixie's Midnight Runners.
Oh yeah, that one. My fault.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. It's
But
kind of funny, It's kind of Here's the funny. I always question. I didn't think people from England or Ireland or I was into country music because that song was a country music song. What do you think about Dixie hillbilly type of tune there? But then again, I guess what it was, they were trying to bring some of that back, that style back, and they did it on that album, 2RA, which was the name of it.
yeah.
And we haven't heard from them in ages. They did come out with another record soon afterwards, but they abandoned that particular style for Suits and Ties, and sadly, it just flopped. That follow-up record, you know.
Yeah. Number 6, I have "Self Control" by Laura Branigan.
Rest in peace to her. She died, I guess, in the
Uh-huh.
early 2000s.
Yeah, she died in 2004 of an aneurysm in her
Wow,
sleep.
I know, which is sad because she came up with some pretty good songs.
And she was beautiful, man.
She was, yeah.
Like,
Solitude. I remember the video for that. There was a program of Fridays and Saturday nights called Night Tracks that used to air on the America Superstation TBS, and I
yeah.
remember that video pretty much well. The video for the song you mentioned, as well as the first time I heard of her was the song Gloria. I'm very
Gloria
sure,
was.
yeah, which was a big hit. And for some reason, I don't know how. I guess it's become a popular among the gay music crowd. I guess at the gay nightclubs, if I'm correct.
Yeah. I first heard of her in the Vice City game because she came up with Self Control popped up in one of the radio stations, and I was like, I could dig it. I like the tone of it,
Mm,
and that's how I found out who she was. Like a lot of my '80s, like I said, a lot of my '80s shit started with that game, man.
wow. Yeah. And also, we got to give her credit as well because she was a damn good vocalist.
Yeah, man.
Don, it's sad that her career had to die out before the end of the 1980s. I know she put out a couple records after that, and I guess her time was done. I guess people move
Yeah.
on to the next thing. All right.
Number 5, I this is my top 5. Number 5 is "Shout" by Tears for Fears,
Ah,
and
yeah,
that is fucking great song, man.
it is a very profound song. Here's a little story behind that song. Um, there was there's something called the primal scream effect. It's
Yeah.
where a person who has a lot of issues build up inside of them. They see it's basically to get the patient to talk about some painful memories that they went through, whether it's physical or sexual abuse or being bullied a lot, and the result of that would where they would scream out loud and shout. So I guess that and plus the guy who came up with that, some doctor whose name escapes me, he wrote a book about that technique, and he called it Tears for Fears.
Fears, yeah.
Yes, that's where they got the name from. And I
So
guess
is that where in the song he says, "In violent times you shouldn't have to sell your soul"?
yes,
Is that
being
yeah,
yes, correct. And here's a noted fact: John Lennon was one of those seeking that particular treatment because he had a lot of issues with his aunt Mimi frowning upon him because he was into rock and roll. His father leaving him and his mother dying in a car wreck. And his wife, he was also upset that his wife Yoko was being blamed for the Beatles breakup, which we know it was not true. It was the
Yeah.
way they couldn't. As good as the Beatles were, they were not good businessmen when it came to running a record label. But that's a different subject there for another time.
Mm. Number four, I have "Strange Love" by Depeche Mode.
Oh yeah, classic. Still played on the golf clubs today. Still a
It's just,
classic.
it's
It's a
so. Go ahead.
no. I mean, did you ever saw the video for that song?
Yes.
Oh yeah, damn. That was
Fuck.
one. That was way before the risky video for "Closer" by Nine Inch Nails. When you think about it, I mean, seeing that woman and that the outfits that she was wearing, it's like holy fuck,
Yeah,
dang.
man.
Kind of an S&M type of feel to it when you think about it there. But then again, it kind of goes along with another song of theirs called "Master and Servant," which I heard many times in the past.
For number three, I
Yes.
have the "Drive" by the Cars.
Oh yeah. It's kind of fun, it's interesting enough. Rick Ocasek, the guy, the singer who passed away a couple years back,
Yeah.
and that model Paula, whose last name I cannot pronounce. Um, she was a Sports Illustrated model. She appeared on their cover there's a lot of their excuse me swimsuit issues many times around the 80s, and eventually she would become his wife. They fell in love. She stated that she was all these big macho bulk men were not her style. She wanted someone that was scrawny, and Rick Ocasek, rest in peace, was that kind of person that she needed. I guess at the time of his death, they were both estranged. Something went wrong with the marriage there, and now she is sadly gone. No, he is sadly gone. My apologies, folks. I'm fumbling with my words
Yeah.
here. I got to do something about that. Okay.
You'd be all right, bro.
All right. Thanks.
For number two, I have "Keep on Loving You" by REO Speedwagon.
Oh yeah, that was when it. That's it's kind of funny. That song was fucking everywhere. That whole album, High Infidelity,
It's,
was all
it's
everywhere.
it's just so fucking good, man. I like
It's
it.
it's I guess when I understand it's about guy still loving his girlfriend even though she cheated on him many times in the past. What I understand.
It's just weird because in the video, it's like he sees a therapist and he's
Hmm.
like imagining this girl in his head
Yep.
that he made perfect for him, but then again she rejects him all the time,
Ah.
and then she goes out with all his other friends,
Yeah.
and so he's singing to her, say, "Hey, I made you. I like. Why are you choosing everybody else over me? You're supposed to be for me, not you, not everybody else." And then at the end, he's asking him, "Who is this girl?" And he looks at her, and it's the girl. It's his therapist.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like the twist at the end, but it's a
Wow.
great video, and she is so fucking hot in the video.
Wow. That's something. It's kind of funny. The subject of that is also the same subject of "Don't You Want Me" by the Human League.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you remember the lyrics from that song, you know what I'm talking about there, where he's like, "I made you, and I built you up, I could take it back down too." Where she says, "Hey, I still love you. You're still one of my favorites, but I gotta move on. I gotta find my own stride." Yeah.
oh man. And my number one song, and people are probably not gonna like this, but this is one of my favorites. This is "Hold Me Now" by the Thompson Twins,
Oh, I remember that.
and that
Yeah.
was that was released in 1984.
Yes, I remember that. It's kind of funny. Who would have thought that Amanda Curry and Tom Bailey were actually seeing each other at that time?
Yeah,
Yeah, the lady there with the shaved off eye with no eyebrows, along with the
yeah,
guy with the red hair there.
yeah.
They eventually apparently they were seeing each other at that time, and the guy Joe, the black guy, I guess I guess he would later leave a couple years later afterwards for some unknown reason. I guess he now works in L.A. on doing something there, some sort of film projects and stuff there. And I guess Tom and Alana, I guess they now live in New Zealand. I guess they have a good life there. From what I
But they
understand.
weren't. They were. Yeah, I think he remarried. He's married to a girl named Lauren Drescher.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah,
about that.
because they were married for 13 years, and I guess they got divorced in
Wow.
2004.
Wow, that's a surprise. I didn't hear about that.
Yeah,
That's a trip and a half. It's kind of, yeah. It's kind of, it also fits to say that Tom Bailey's tail in the back that he had in the back of his head, that would inspire a lot of other kids out there to do, boys then, to do the same to their hairstyles.
yeah,
Yeah, because I remember there was this one kid in the high school who was into stuff like the Prince, Time, Rick James, which was also the funk, the electro funk scene. I think it was called the Minneapolis sound was big at that time, and some of the guys at the table that I was sitting with, they were like saying, "Boy, get rid of that tail. Don't come that tail near me." Like, because at that time they were into things like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. Things were very segregated back then. You had the punk rockers, the new wavers, and the basic rockers here. They didn't really get along with one another because back then they were like sworn enemies. I remember
yeah,
there was this one magazine I used to read called Cream Magazine, and basically they used to get all these letters, praising either the Clash or Led Zeppelin. And so they came up with this fake debate between two characters. There was Geddy Lee Roth, and we know who they got two people they got that idea from, and some other person who was damn it, I forgot that other character's name, but they would go at it who was better, the Clash or Led Zeppelin. And this was a play. This was a kind of like a screenplay when you think about it. There,
it's like a live action musical.
yeah, yeah. So with yeah, and it was and this was in that magazine. It was like, it's kind of like that's what it was going down to. It was coming to that point. Bands were like being debated who was better, whether it's Led Zeppelin or the who were better than that. Well, of course, that was back in the 70s. Led Zeppelin disbanded after John Bonham died in 1980. The Who carried on for a few more years after that, but after Keith Moon died, their music kind of fizzled out a little bit. Yeah. And a lot of people said they should have broke up after Moon died. So, who knows?
There's just
Nowadays,
a lot of those bands. They were heavily on drugs, and they all, a lot of them died. Like, the guy who sang Tarzan Boy. I think his name's Jimmy McShane.
yeah,
He,
Baltimore.
yeah, he died at the age of 37.
Yeah, I think it was AIDS, from what I understand.
Yeah, he died of AIDS. It's like a lot of those people were like so influential, and they all have a lot of them have tragic endings. It's just sad.
Because they had all this access. I mean, drugs were accessible, sex was accessible. I mean,
Yeah,
Holly Johnson, the front man for Frankie Goes to Hollywood, he
yeah.
was diagnosed with HIV around 1993.
Wow.
And I guess he still has it to this day. I don't know how he's doing or anything, if he's still performing or anything like that. But Frankie Goes to Hollywood got a lot of flack from Boy George and the members of Duran because some of those basically they were promoting homosexuality through some of the tidbits on their first album, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. It had the gatefold of that album had a drawing of every species of animal, both males, climbing, heading into the head of a penis.
Really?
Yes, you could probably find it on Google Images. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Gatefold, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. Definitely look it up, see what I'm talking about. There were a couple times A couple photos of Paul Rutherford, one of the singers there, dressed up in that metal outfit that Rob Halford will be dressed up as at the same time. There was a picture of a guy grabbing onto a pierced nipple ring.
Oh man.
Yeah. And if it's to say, of course, heavy metal was a big at that time as well. The bands like Rat, Twisted Sister, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest,
I love
Van
Twisted
Halen.
Sister.
Yeah, dude, that was one of the big. No doubt, we're not gonna take it. I Want to Rock and some of the other songs on the albums definitely spoke volumes on how teenagers were feeling at that time.
Didn't he make a cameo in the Pee Wee Herman movie?
I'm not. I never really saw the Pee Wee Herman movie, but I'm not too sure about that. But Dee Snider has been very active in a lot of things. He's been doing voiceovers for things that aired on the VH1 channel, like top 10 least metal moments or the top 10 metal moments of all time.
Yeah.
And also, we got to remember he wrote the movie, starred in the movie Strange Land, where
Yeah.
yeah,
Wasn't
Captain
that was
Howdy.
wasn't that directed it by Robert Englund, the guy that played Freddy Krueger?
I'm not too sure. I have to look it up. But let's see if we can look it up there.
Strangeland. 1998 it came out.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
no, he was. D. Snyder wrote the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote the movie and he started in as well as this character named Captain Howdy, which was,
Yeah.
by the way, taken from The Exorcist, believe it or not.
Yes. I was like, wait, I heard that name before, so now I know. Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to realize it as well.
Robert Englund is in the movie. He plays Jackson Roth.
All right. Ah, nice. And also, got a shout out to him and the guys who played Jason Voorhees in the Friday the 13th franchise, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchises. Those were big, way big back then. I remember Dawkins' Dream Warriors, the theme song for number 3, The
Oh,
Dream Child. And also, I remember a lot of heavy metal music was underground music was featured in a lot of low budget movies. I remember there was a singer who called himself Thor, who tried to look like the Thor, him look like Thor, the character. He was a part of a movie called Recruits, which was supposed to have been a low budget ripoff of Police Academy.
yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of a lot of follower people were following the trends at that time. Like for instance, the Terminator, the first movie when it came out in 1984.
Mm.
Yeah, it originally came out on a movie company called Canon Films. But then again, that movie got so big that years later it would be reissued under the Paramount Pictures, release there. And soon after that, all these cyborg type movies would be coming out, all these futuristic flicks.
Mm.
Yeah.
This
So,
is like everything is like influential. That's
yeah,
what I'm saying. It's like not a lot of things original anymore.
I know. Sadly, because a lot of the bands we see nowadays, try to copy that. Well, there are some tribute bands out there that I remember seeing a band called The Crew, which was a tribute to the early Motley Crue. They were dressed up like the Crew did during the Shot of the Devil period.
Yeah.
And also, I remember seeing those. I'm back in around 2005. There was this 80's tribute group called the M80's, which logo was styled like the original MTV logo. They had all the wigs, the clothing, and stuff like that, doing everything from old Journey to all Duran, you name it.
I'm surprised I didn't mention Hungry Like the Wolf. This could be one of my honorable mentions.
Oh man, we got to give it up to Duran. Well, when we think of Duran, we think of the 1980s and vice versa, because they
Yeah.
were massive. They were like considered the Fab Five. It's funny when they broke big around the 83, 84, 82. Around 84, people were actually starting to call them the new Beatles because 20 years before, the Beatles would make their debut in 19 on the Ed Sullivan Show, And at the same time, this other British group of good-looking lads who play instruments were making it big with the young ladies there. So I guess at one point Simon LeBon said, "We are not the Beatles. We're a totally different group. We cite them as an influence, but we are not the Beatles." I know he had to make that statement loud and clear because a lot of people were calling them the Fab Five at one point to the Fab Four. And
I
you're gonna,
remember when they came out with this song in the '90s. Like they just, I think they try to get into like the new era, and
yeah,
it's the song called "Come Undone." It was actually
yeah.
pretty
So I
good.
remember, yes, I remember that. That was when they really, that was their comeback year. That Ordinary World was pretty good stuff there. I remember hearing some stuff from that album, the Wedding album, as often christened as. I remember hearing I actually had that CD for a while, and there was a lot of good stuff on there. My personal favorite from then would have to be a 1990 release titled Liberty. I would listen to that when I would bike when I was living in. Let me start again. When I would ride my bike from Richmond, back in Michigan, to St. Clair, which is a little town by the waterside there, I would listen to that whole album while riding from St. Clair to Marine City, which was good long distance from there. And and I will say it's one of the best summer albums out there, next to Life Forms by the Future Sound of London, and of course Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yeah,
Yeah, pretty damn good record there.
hell yeah.
It should have definitely worth checking out there. I was, if it's to say that I became more of a fan of their music after all that hype stuff died out, when he started writing more different song styles, like a Notorious or Big Thing in '88. Some of the songs from that record are pretty good. Too Late Madeline was a good one. Land is another. Do You Believe in Shame, which, by the way, was written for Andy Warhol, who died a year earlier. So,
Andy Warhol
yeah,
is.
yeah, the artist, he was one of the most recognized New York-based artists out there. He was sponsoring the Velvet Underground, which featured the late Lou Reed back in the '60s. Definitely looking up. He was David Bowie portrayed him in a movie about another New York artist, if I remember. Yes.
Oh man, how can I forget David Bowie, man?
Oh yeah,
R.I.P. to
God.
him.
Oh yeah, who? Bowie was definitely on a stride as well.
Like,
The movie Labyrinth from '86.
oh my God, he fucking was amazing in there.
He was definitely.
It's just that voice, like I don't know, it's just, and that's not autotune, that's him.
Yeah, that's him. Yep.
Like I think when he sings one of the songs to the girl in Labyrinth, is like you can see like he was really into that role.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of people at that time really get into those roles a lot. Yeah, definitely. I remember there was a lot of low budget. You remember the movie Top Secret? I
Yeah,
guess it starred Val Kilmer. It was
yeah.
It's kind of like one of those gag every moment type of movies, like Hot Shots and Police Academy, and like of course Airplane. I remember seeing that back in 1980. I remember it was a pretty goofy ass movie there.
Yeah, it's from the Sucker Brothers. They're fucking goofy.
Yeah, I know. And gosh, I remember them seeing some bits of Top Secret with Val Kilmer. It's safe to say that it's sad to see Val Kilmer in the state he is now, because he's been dealing with throat cancer for a while now.
Yeah.
He doesn't really look like his old self no more, sadly. I know he gained.
He's gonna be in the new Top Gun movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I remember seeing the trailer for that. It's called Top Gun Maverick. Gosh, how many people wanted to become an airline pilot after seeing that movie?
That was a great film.
It's kind of funny. Gary Newman, you remember him for the song "Cars" down in the park?
Yeah.
He's actually a certified pilot of those particular jet planes. And one time he had to seriously land in country of India, and he was locked up for a while because they mistook him for a British spy.
Really?
Yeah,
What the fuck?
I know. That's kind of funny. But then again, Lenny Kravitz walks into a bank and he gets arrested because he was mistaken for a bank robber.
Holy shit.
So crazy shit like that happens all the time there. I
Oh
remember
my.
hearing. Here's another story. I remember hearing, reading this one thing in the magazine that Vince Neil was busted for holding an empty beer can in some sort of a venue there, which was considered an offense in that particular town. I forgot which town it was. Apparently, the cops took one look at him, like they right away pulled out their guns and said, "Freeze!"
Oh shit.
And the way Motley Crue looked at back then, it's like, holy cow. I remember the movie Trick or Treat. You remember that movie from '86?
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne made appearance on there as the reverend denouncing heavy metal. With these people got to be stopped. I remember the music was performed by this group called Fastway, which featured the late Fast Eddie Clark, the former guitarist for Motorhead. And the singer for that group, by the way, Dave King, is now the frontman for Flogging Molly, believe it or not.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Wasn't Gene Simmons in that Trick or Treat movie?
I believe, yes, he was. Yeah, at that time he was evolving into some acting roles for a while. He appeared in a movie entitled Runaway, which came out in 1984. He had to cut his hair a little bit there to fit the role, which
Wow.
explains why he wore a wig for the Kiss tour soon after that movie came out. It was a straight-haired wig, I guess.
I remember watching Kiss in that movie Detroit Rock City.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
when I first came like familiar with them. I was like, what the
Oh,
fuck?
I knew about him years back as a kid. You know, my sister had Kiss Alive too. I would borrow that, listen to some of the songs, and years later, when I got into my heavy metal mode, I would buy up some of the old Kiss records, like cassettes, like Destroyer, Rock and Roll Over. Yeah, that's what it's called. Rock and Roll Over. I also had the first Alive album, iconic live record there next to Frampton Comes Alive, by the way. And I remember buying Animalize and, of course, the Lick It Up album as well.
Did they ever like explain to us like why they put the paint on their face?
I guess so. It was the idea of, I guess back then it was somebody to get attention, Here's these four band members up on stage with all this makeup there, and I guess it was a way to become, let the people know who they are. There's a
Yeah.
thing that there's three C's in the entertainment industry. Controversy creates cash, and I guess
Yeah.
what they were trying to do is cause controversy by putting on the makeup, and coming on stage and singing all these songs about rock and roll, party all night, and rock and roll all night and stuff. And when the word gets around about this group, they're going to come definitely check them out in hopes of getting assigned to a major label. And that's, of course, eventually it took a while for them to make it big. Of course, the Alive record and the Destroyer album that came afterwards would definitely do that. But prior to that, they were still like struggling. They weren't selling that much. I guess it
And
was a little.
are all members still alive?
Yes, they are. Yeah, the only ones that are not alive were the guys who came in after Peter, Chris, and Ace Frehley left the group. Eric
It
Carr,
says
who came after Peter Chris, he died in 1991 from cancer. The same
uh,
time Freddie Mercury passes away from AIDS.
really the same month
Yeah,
or the
the
same
same
year.
month. The same month.
Wow.
Yep, same month
Damn.
and same year at the same time. Exactly. And also Mark St. John, who was played for a while on that album Animalize and did some shows with them. He passed away. I'm not too sure what it was, but he had to leave. He had to be filled in by Bruce Kulick, who was remained there up until '95 when he reunited with Chris and Fraley. Apparently, Mark St. John had some sort of issue with his hand at that time. It's some sort of a arthritis type condition that would make his hand swell up for some reason. I had to look that up again. I'll see what he had there. Because I understand Inve Malmsteen had some arthritis issue from driving his Stratocaster too damn fast.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like now, when you see these artists from the 80's today, how they look today, are you surprised?
Yeah, I am because they look nothing like they did back in the
I
80's.
know. I know. It's like, yeah, like Mark Kendall, the guitarist for the band Great White. He always wore those dark shades, glasses. I think they may have been prescription. He always had this massive, long, flowing hair. He's now bald. He shaved his head off. I guess he was going bald, and I guess that's one of the key things that people do when they start to go bald. They either wear a
Yeah.
hat 24/7 when they go out in public, or they just shave it all off. I know Rob Halford had to do that. I know Matthias Jabs from the Scorpions, their lead guitarist, and Klaus Ming, their singer. They wear hats when they're always out in public because, for the obvious reason.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't like. I hope that doesn't happen to me.
I
I
know.
gotta keep my.
I know. I'm 54 years old and I still got my full head of hair. Thank goodness here.
Well, I haven't seen anybody in my family that's bald, so I guess it's just like because my grandfather is 75 years old and he has a full head of black hair.
Ah, it's good. It's kind
So
of. I know. I know. There was this one guy here whose album I had from him titled "Akimbo Alago" from '85. Excellent record. His name was Kim Mitchell. He was the lead singer and guitarist for the band Max Webster, a well-respected Canadian group there. They often played the Michigan area a couple of times when they had the chance. He released a solo record titled Akimbo Alago, which you remember the song "Go for Soda," which is one of the donation songs on Drew's program, by the way.
oh yeah,
Yep, that's where he got it from. He decided to shave all his head off because he was going bald on top.
oh my
You
god,
could tell right away that he was wearing hats all the time there. Kevin Key of Skinny Puppy. He's wearing a hats and a bandana underneath all the time there for the same reason. He was losing his hair on top.
could it be for like since they're always stressed out and shit? And they could use your hair like that too.
Well, I think what it is that when you grow older, your testosterone starts to
Drops.
thin, it drops, yes. And I guess your hair is included in that deal there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And which is kind of sad because you imagine them to be this person that you expect to be back in the 80's, and now they look totally different. For example, Vince Neil. But prior to the COVID-19 hitting, he was supposed to have been on this training program to get lose all that damn weight. And
And
I
he
guess he
didn't.
should. And I said, I don't know if he's still doing it or what the fuck. Or when you saw those recent photos of Vince Neil with that big beach ball belly of his, what did you think?
I was like, dude, what the fuck is like? How can someone let themselves get that far? Like,
I know. I
it's
was
just
like, I showed that to my sister. She was like the same thing. She was like, what the fuck happened? I
he
don't know
was
if, well,
skinny.
yeah, he was, back in around when he was wearing all those skinny outfits, in the Looks at Kill video. And now to see him like this, and what makes it worse is that he's unable to sing the way he used to. He just mumbles all these words. He just makes noises. There's a lot of clips out there on YouTube of displaying all that.
Oh my god.
And it's like,
They,
what the fuck is going on here?
and he's been married 3 times.
Yes. And let's not forget, he also ended the band Hanoi Rocks. You ever heard that story?
Yeah.
Yeah, where for those who don't know, him and Razzle, the drummer for the group Hanoi Rocks, would left was at a party back in L.A. They left, got in Vince's car to get some more booze, get some more drugs, and everything else. Apparently, they got into this accident. The two people that they struck were had some brain damage afterwards, but I guess they still made it through. Razzle, on the other hand, died as a result from his injuries. And Vince Neil, he suffered some sort of injuries, but he also had to do time in prison for his crimes there.
Yeah, this says vehicular manslaughter.
Yeah. And the band Hanoi Rocks sadly had to try a couple of fill-ins, to take the place of their drummer, but yet the chemistry really wasn't there no more. So they decided to call it quits. So for a long while, their singer, Michael Monroe, in a couple of interviews afterwards, held a lot of resentment towards Vince Neil after that, because Vince Neil, in his eyes, killed Hanoi Rocks. And Hanoi Rocks at that time had this awesome cover of CCR's Up Around the Bend. I remember hearing seeing that video back, I think it was back in 1984, 83, or I think it was. Yeah, in 1983, I remember that. They were not really a heavy metal, but yet they appealed to the heavy metal crowd, the same way the Ramones and the Sex Pistols did, or the
Um,
Clash. And I guess they were also, Ken X, by the way, also had played a big part in influencing Guns N' Roses. You remember their label Uzi Suicide,
yeah,
GNR's label?
yeah.
They were able to re-release all the Hanoi Rocks the catalog on that label on the colored vinyl, all except for this one album called Two Steps from the Move, which came out on Epic CBS Records back in 1983. And of course, CBS owns the rights to that album there. Yeah. So anything, what do you would you consider? I'm gonna let you talk a little bit about. There are some songs out there that are time to that one person timeless, or albums. What do you consider the best albums from the 80's, songs or albums that didn't really break it big, but yet to you they were number one in your mind?
Hmm. So you're talking about like one hit wonders?
Something like that, yes, or a one album wonders.
Oh, there's so many. If I would have to say, I would say "Forever Young" by Alphaville.
Oh yeah, definitely. I remember hearing that song. That's like a big. That song is often used at graduations, still to this very day when it's played
And
on the
there,
radio.
and a lot of the like rap artists nowadays, they come up with like cover songs from it, and
Yeah.
not a lot of people know who the original guy that sang it.
Yeah, I remember Snoop Dogg did covering Dougie Fresh, Lottie Dottie. I remember that song well.
Jay-Z.
Oh yeah, of course a lot of that stuff was. And here's the thing that depresses me about today's rap scene. Back then, doing crime, doing drugs, being a thug was not the thing to be when it came to rap music. I mean, like Slick Rick, he was saying he had a couple of songs out there called "Children's Bedtime Story," which was kind of like about a guy, Rock tried to run in from the police. He was basically saying in that song, "Don't be that person there." He also had a song called "Treat Her Like a Prostitute," which was basically an anti cruelty to women song there. Don't treat her like a prostitute. That's what
Yeah,
he was trying to get at. I mean, Ice T, some of his rap lyrics, they kind of gave you the point of view from the drug dealer's perspective, as well as the perspective of the family who is going through drug addiction themselves. He kind of gave you both sides of the coin there. He gave you the side of where the drug dealer and the thugs were coming from, the street gang members, what their side of the story. But he also gave you the flip side, saying You want to make somebody your life? Don't join a gang. You got your life ahead of you. I'm still here. And he did that well on the single, the edited version of the song Colors back in when that movie came out.
What about the band Air Supply?
Oh gosh.
I
Are they still together after all these years?
think that they are. It's just I don't think they're making any songs.
Oh gosh, because they were like one of I remember Elton John listening to him as one of his favorite groups there. I remember Lost in Love, All Out of Love, other stuff like
Making love out of nothing at all.
yeah, the song that the guy who backed up Meatloaf wrote that for him, Jim Steinman.
Yeah,
He later wrote the song what's it with that Bonnie Tyler song? Son of a bitch. Total Eclipse of the Heart. He wrote that song, definitely.
he wrote that.
Yes, he did, yeah. You can always tell it's a Jim Steinman composition when it has that theatrical feel to the song of how it's performed and how it's arranged and how it's produced. And also, he did work with the Sisters of Mercy, one of the most well respected goth rock bands out there. The song My Corrosion. You remember that song by chance?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great album there. Floodland from '87, one of my favorites there. He also did it again years later for a song called More, which came out in 1990. Another good song there. Choirs and everything in both those tracks.
So
And
that guy wrote like a lot of good fucking songs.
yeah, he did. Like I said, he also did. I guess he did something with Celine Dion years later. I guess in the 1990s. I guess I forgot the title of that song there. But like I said, you can always tell by its production, by the way it's performed, and how theatrical it sounds. It definitely is a Jim Steinman composition.
Like with John Hughes, it's a John Hughes movie.
Yep, correctly.
Yeah.
If it's it was an outlandish comedy, or it was a serious teen drama. He mastered at both those genres pretty well back in the '80s with his movies there. Yeah. I gotta mention this one record that's still one of my favorites to this day, and I credit my best friend Dennis. Shout out to you, brother, up in Romeo, Michigan. He turned me on to this album, and I still love it to this very damn day. This is one of my I consider this one of my you know Easter eggs of the 1980s when it comes to albums. You ever heard of the Project Arcadia?
That I have not heard.
No, it was one of two side groups that the members of Duran did around 1985. The first was, of course, the Power Station. John Taylor, Andy Taylor, the late Robert Palmer, and the late Tony Thompson. They released this one album, self-titled. Do you remember the song "Some Like It Hot" and their cover of "Bang a Gong, Get It On," the O.T. Rex tune there? That
Yeah.
was massively big. I remember they did go on a short tour with Michael DeBars, who was an actor and a singer in his own right. He took over Robert Palmer's place because Palmer at the time was recording his album, which Riptide, which of course featured the multi-successful "Addicted to Love" which came out a year later. And I guess Arcadia came out of the same year, but it came out a year but a lot more. Now the difference between I'm sorry for my fumbling of words, ladies and gentlemen. Arcadia was Nick Rhodes, Roger Taylor, and Simon LeBon, the other three members of Duran Duran. Their album "So Red the Rose," was a lot more darker. It was a lot more. It had a lot more celebrities on their albums. They had a bass player named Mark Agan who played with the Pat Metheny group. And by the way, speaking of Pat Metheny, him and David Bowie did this excellent song together for the Falcon and the Snowman movie, which starred Timothy Hutton and Sean Penn, called "This Is Not America." Excellent tune there. I definitely highly recommend it. It also featured Grace Jones doing some spoken word things on both Election Day, the first single, and The Flame, which is then towards, I guess, at the beginning of that track there. It also featured Sting doing backup vocals on a song called The Promise. Featured Andy
That's a good
McKay.
song.
Yeah. Also featured Andy McKay, the saxophone player from Roxy Music, and one of my favorite guitar players, David Gilmour of Pink Floyd. He did a lot of guitar work with other musicians back then, up until he got back together with Pink Floyd. He worked with Paul McCartney. He worked with Brian Ferry for a while as well. Yep, it's kind of. And the songs from that album, So Red the Rose, they're best to play. There was this area that me and my buddies, me and my old lady, my girlfriend would hang around at. It's by Port Huron, Marysville, Michigan area there. It's by the water. There's this little area across the way, which is Canada. This sort of factory or some sort of a mining, whatever it called is. I'm not too sure what it was. I wanted to find out to get a close-up view of it one time, but I wasn't able to find out where it was truly located. But we would see it from the far distance, and it looked like the Los Angeles in the first Blade Runner movie. The city in Blade Runner. That's what it resembled, just without the constant raining. And I remember, I guess my Dennis was my passenger at the car I was driving at that time, and he was playing the songs from So Red the Rose on the cassette. And the image of that scenario that I described, along with the music, just fit perfectly. It's a great album to listen to at nighttime, whenever I'm bike riding out by some. There's an area by the Woodlands Mall here. It's called the Market Street area. It has all these big business buildings. I loved riding my bike around that area. So Red the Rose is a good album to play while listening to that as well. Any area that's it's a nighttime record to put forth. One of the best nighttime records ever worth listening to. I highly recommend it, definitely. Yeah. So that's one of my recommendations there. And also another album that I definitely got into from 1989, Cashmere Dreams by Fernando Saunders. Now, this is a pop record, definitely. I'm mostly a heavy metal, hard rock type of guy, but for some reason, when I first heard this on cassette, I bought it just to see because I wanted the house on it to play some other tape inside of it whose house and that broke. So what I did is I would play that tape, and I was on a sunny day around the Sterling Heights area back in Michigan, of course. I would listen to that, and the feeling the euphoria that you get, the nirvana that you listen to and feel when you're seeing all these areas, sunny day, these open fields, while listening to that album is tremendously overwhelming in a positive way. I would listen.
Especially,
Yes, I would listen to that on cassette when I would bike ride from Richmond, Michigan to, of course, all the way to St. Clair.
so
Great album. Great album.
it's like a good mind cleanser, like the
Yes, correct.
re- relaxing and like one with nature.
Yes, that is correct. That's my second. I think there was another one I wanted to recommend as well. I think I'm not too sure. I think that may be the only two so far. I'm thinking so. Do you have any recommendations there, Junebug?
Music wise,
Yes, on albums and what we should check out for
a
everybody to
lot of
check. Go ahead.
were you like into a lot of the freestyle in the late 80's, like Johnny O?
Not really that much. I remember hearing some of that stuff a little bit there, but I
Because I
wasn't
was
really
like,
into that.
yeah, because that's like like basically like everything that I mentioned, a lot of you guys heard already.
Yes.
But like since I wanted to throw that at you to see like maybe you can give it a shot because there was a lot of good songs in
I remember.
those.
I remember there was Lisa. Lisa. I understand there was a late
Cynthia,
Cynthia. There was also Stevie B. I remember he was a big artist there. His stuff was played on some top 40 radios a lot of times, like Party Your Body, I guess it was called.
yeah,
And
and
they,
then
and
like
all
go
these
ahead.
groups are from Miami, if I'm correct, right?
Yes.
Yep, that's the freestyle capital of the world. And also, we got to give it up to this group, the Two Live Crew. The first record that came out back in the 87, 88. Believe it or not, you had they would sell that album. Two Live is What We Are with the song We Want Some Pussy. That was sold behind the counter, believe it or not. At
Really?
some record stores back then. Whereas years later, as nasty as they want to be, would be just sold out to the public for anybody else to pick up. Mind you, the warning sticker, which is right on the album cover there, and of course, the big warning there.
The Human League. Were you a fan of them?
There were a couple of songs I did like. Excuse me there
Like
for a second there.
it's the song "Don't You Want Me, Baby" and
Yes, that was one of the biggest. That would help give gateway to the techno pop scene back then. Them, Heaven 17, Naked Eyes, some some group named after a French dessert that I cannot pronounce. And believe it or not, Ministry. They had an album called With Sympathy. It was Alan Jorgensen and Stephen George. It was a techno pop record. And for how many years Jorgensen would later evolve into his industrial metal scene would dislodge that record, call that record a complete abortion. And now, as of late, he has now finally decided to embrace that album after all these years because and I guess the reason why I said it wasn't the kind of record he wanted to make. He wanted to make the record he wanted to make, but sadly the record label he was signed to at that time, Arista, wanted him to make a techno pop record like the Human League and Heaven 17 because that was the style back then. He often cited as making a record with a gun against your head. That was how it was back then. You had to follow along with the current styles, or else you were out the door.
what about Noel Silent Morning?
Noel Silent Morning. I don't think I've heard of that person. You have to give me some information on there. Noel. It was
No.
just Noel. I'm correct.
Yeah, Noel.
All right. Is it
It
a
came out in 1987.
yes? Ah, so many artists out there that we have never got to even mention.
Yep, like
Yeah.
Pure Energy
Oh, Pure
for
Energy. I remember
Information Society.
Yes, I remember that song. You went on my channel. There's some footage I got them when they played my old workplace, the golf club that I worked at. They did this outside performance out there. I guess I don't know what the purpose was, but they were setting up their equipment. Now there was not a lot of people there because, as we all know, there was a one-hit wonder with that song, and
Yeah,
another song called "Running Away."
yeah, that's another one I like.
Yeah, they did that song, and they got guess who came out and they sing a few songs with them? Mike Reno of Loverboy.
Wow.
Yeah, and by the way, that's another one who's gained a lot of weight, as you could probably see. You look at him how he looks nowadays, you see he has a big ass beach ball belly as well.
So the tequila.
I don't know where it comes from. I got a selfie with him of when that happened, and of course it was pretty good. There's some footage of Mike Reno singing with him, doing some Loverboy songs like "The Kid Is Hot Tonight," and of course doing their song "Running Away." It's on my channel right now if you could find it there. This was a couple years back, but it was a pretty good night there. easygoing night. Awesome night there. They should do that a lot more. Sadly, I'm not working there right now, so God knows what they got planned on there. All right. There's this one song I should probably mention here. It was by a group called Kissin' the Pink. A song called Big Man Restless. I've requested a few times Friday nights at the Numbers nightclub in Houston, but sadly, they never play it for some reason. I don't know why. The resident DJ on Friday nights, shout out to him, DJ Wes Wallace. He did his club version of the song "Psycho Killer" by the Talking Heads. It's on YouTube right now. It was shot in and outside of the Numbers nightclub as well. Pretty good cover there. I'd highly recommend it.
What was it called? Psycho.
Psycho Killer.
Psycho Killer. All
Yes,
right.
definitely check it out. What I always seem to request it a lot of times myself because it is a badass version there. Now, I definitely love this song. The song I mentioned here, "Big Man Restless" by Kiss and the Pink. When I first heard that song, it reminded me of when me, my mom, dad, sister were driving in the family car to somewhere. I guess it was somewhere in downtown Detroit. We would during the winter time we would see the snow coming down on the freeway cars. So when we were on the passing by a bridge, and the feeling of that mixing together with the song was dynamic as well. So when I hear that song, I think about that particular scenario. So that definitely that song holds a lot of good memories for me. Gosh, all right. Sorry about that.
No, you're
So
good.
yeah. So that's pretty much all I got. I know now these days these bands are now doing shows still. They do a lot of festivals like Rewind festivals. I guess they had one in England not too long ago. I know
Yeah.
and a lot of them are only have one original member. Believe it or not, I guess Mike Score, the singer and keyboard player from Flock of Seagulls, he's the only original member right now. Believe it or not, from what I
Wow.
understand. And of
Yeah.
course, a lot of bands, Missing Persons, Dale Basio, I guess she has her own version of the group. Terry Nunn, the singer from the band Berlin, she has her own incarnation, for what I understand as well. I guess a couple of members either leave or die off, I guess. I remember the news that James Honeyman Scott, the lead guitarist for the Pretenders, Chrissy Hyde's band, he died from drug addiction. And a couple
Wow.
years later, Pete Farden, the bass player, he also passed away from the same thing.
Uh, there's a lot of them that still do shows. The ones that are still alive. Hall and Oates were in my area last
Yeah.
year,
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's
and I
good to
wanted
see
to.
them.
I wanted to go, but I had to work.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
Probably would have been the only young one there.
It's kind of funny, yeah, most likely because they had they were all over MTV back in the days. I remember
Oh,
Mad Eater, Adult Education,
out of
Sadism,
touch.
So Out of Touch, songs that are still played on the radio today. Yeah,
Uh,
some of the videos were cheesy, but then again, that's how it was back then for pop acts during that time.
and out of touch was also in the Vice City game.
I'm not surprised. I
Yeah.
am not surprised, man. Gosh, I remember the crazy fashions that bands like Kaja Gugu. Um, there were a lot of underground artists that needed to be mentioned. There was this guy named Tim Scott just came to my mind. He had a song called "Swear" that kind of like had a satanic feel to it. It wasn't really that dark. It was dark, but yet it was not extremely dark. It had a bunch of people dancing around this pentagram. I understand.
Yeah.
And also, like again, I mentioned this to YR when we were doing our show together about satanic rock. Ray Parker Jr. He had a song called "The Other Woman," which took place in this haunted house with all these characters dressed up like Frankenstein, Dracula, witches, and all those get-ups. And towards the end, he's with his guitar, sing along while standing in the middle of a pentagram.
Oh,
I know my
wow.
sister did not care for that at all, because, she was against that kind of stuff, and I didn't really care for it either because, as you know, I would never, you never will see me wear anything occult on my shirts or
Yeah.
pants there.
I wouldn't either. Fuck that.
Because of what I understand, well, of course, we got to mention this. Would you agree that the teachings of the Sith from Star Wars are the same as the teachings of Satanism?
Yes, I believe that.
Yeah, but
I
we
believe
got
that.
to we got to mention the two last movies from 80 and 83, The Empire Strikes Back
Strikes
and
back.
the
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi. Now the reason that I came across that is Kim brought that up is because when you think about it, the Sith teaches you to not to care for your fellow man. You know, all this power can be yours if you just do as I tell you to. All this power if you become my apprentice. I mean, it fits to say that Palpatine was the devil, no matter what.
Yeah, in its true form, and it was proven that in the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, correctly, and
He,
especially in the prequels, especially in the number episode 3.
yeah, because that's what the devil does. It manipulates you to do things so he can get control, and that's
Yes,
what
and
he did
that's
with Anakin. He knew Anakin's weakness was love.
yeah, and also a good point that movie made out the things we do for love.
Yeah,
When we are in love with that particular person, we will sacrifice whether
Christ.
it's money, our time, our energy, our job, anything else to be with that to help that person out.
And if you really pay attention to the prequels, you kind of feel for Anakin because he lost his mother.
Yes.
And then when he had the same dream about Padme,
Yeah.
he didn't want the same thing to happen. So he tried everything in his power to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, but
But if you listen to what Mace Windu tells him, you can't stop destiny from happening. If that is her
yeah.
fate, you just gotta let it happen, bro.
Yeah, so Yoda told him the same thing.
Yeah.
But sadly, Anakin couldn't accept that, because he was too traumatized by his mother passing away before
Yeah.
his own eyes.
He's also was a weak-minded person.
Yeah. And also, here's something else. The fact that the fact that he was had that outburst when he was denied Jedi Master rank,
Master.
yeah,
Yeah.
which he wanted it, that pissed him off, and he let loose the way he did, which is something the Jedi didn't should not do. So in a
But
lot
it,
of ways, Anakin was kind of like a brat when you think about it.
yeah, he was like he felt entitled that he needed that Jedi Master rank.
Yeah. Just do your job as a Jedi and be forth with it.
It's because they knew how he was. They knew that there was something
They
brewing
knew, they
inside of
knew,
him.
they knew. Yoda pointed it out, and so did Mace Windu.
In the first one, he tells them
Yeah.
anger leads to tragedy, tragedy leads to hate or some shit like that.
And pain leads to suffering.
Suffering, yep, and that's exactly what happened.
Yep. And once you know, Anakin, did the things he did. He betrayed the Jedi Order. He
Yep,
slaughtered the younglings.
yep.
And as a result, just to save his lovely wife, but who he ends up killing in the end, when he
Yeah,
force choked her, she
he
was able.
was.
At least he was able to. She was able to give birth to their to Luke and Leia at least before her passing.
Yeah, but if you think about it, like he was so selfish.
Yeah,
He didn't put in the fact like, hey, what am I doing? Padme wouldn't agree with that.
yeah. But he was so focused on achieving that certain level that he couldn't
Yeah,
see that
he he.
they get blinded with power,
Yep.
drunk with
But
power. I could put forth.
with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah,
He didn't, and the emperor knew that.
yeah. But they thought that out. And once
Yep.
you know, and when you, and I think it fits to say, we hear about this in Bible stories all the time. You could always get that power, but something else that has to be sacrificed, which is your soul. I
Yep.
mean, and boy, did Anakin Skywalker sacrifice a lot. He sacrificed his body,
Hmm.
He had to be in a life support suit for the rest of his life with a breathing device attached to his chest to help him breathe because his lungs were all so fucked up from the lava.
Yep.
He had to he had to have
Live in
sensors and
pain.
yep, and the suit he was living in was designed to cause him more pain because to keep him in a rage, keep him angry, keep him pissed off. Who has ever heard of a calm, cool, collected Sith Lord? Think about
No.
it.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah. You know what? And when you think about it on this other side, from Anakin's point of view, you know, everybody in his mind, everybody left him and betrayed him. His apprentice Soka left. He felt betrayed by Obi-Wan. He felt betrayed by the
The
Jedi
Jedi
Order.
console. Yeah.
Yeah, he lost his mom. He lost his wife. You know, everybody kind of like left him. The only one who did not leave him was his son, Luke, who in the
Luke.
end helps him redeem himself.
Yep.
You know,
He tried to bring him back to the light, and he
yeah,
succeeded, but he had to kill. He had to die for that.
yeah, it's true because, but of course that was holding up Palpatine was the main cause because the Force lightning went to mechanisms in his suit there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But Palpatine wanted to get rid of him anyway because he knew he grew older,
yeah,
and he knew that Luke was just like his dad. But
yeah,
you know, it
yeah.
didn't work out.
And sadly, Luke resisted. He almost
Yep.
fell to the dark side for a couple of seconds there, and he resisted. Said, "Nope, you failed, Your Highness. You lost."
Your confidence is your weakness. That pissed him off when he said that.
Yep, correctly, because that is true.
Yep.
You people could be overconfident, and next thing you know, boom, something happens where they mess up, and they're like, "Oh fuck," and they're looking like the outright fools after that. All right,
And I felt like the sequels could have been so much better.
the prequels. You mean the
The no
prequels?
the with
Oh, you
Kylo
mean
Ren and them.
episodes
Yeah.
7,
So
8, and 9?
like they just dropped the ball so much because they build them up so well in the Force Awakens, and then
Yeah,
like they just made Ray look strong and stronger and stronger, and made the villain look like a piece of shit.
yeah. Well, that was that SJW that Joe
Yeah,
Cronin talks about in Last Jedi. That's because I think it was because of Kathleen Kennedy, what the control she had over those projects there. I guess
yeah.
she,
It's just they just made the villain look stupid. Like
yeah,
Kylo Ren could have been a badass,
yeah. But they made him look like an emo.
Yeah, like they just made him soft. Like I'm like, what the fuck? Like that's supposed to be Anakin's grandson.
Yeah,
That's Darth Vader's fucking
grandkid there.
bloodline.
Yeah,
Yeah, Han Solo and Leia.
yeah,
Like he should be stronger than Rey, if anything.
yeah. Yeah, but he was going through. But I guess what it was, he was going through his conflicts as well. It's just like Anakin was.
Yeah,
Well, good to know that possibly I'm thinking that George Lucas, this James, what's this guy's name? Filoni, I think his name was his first name. I think it was. I thought it was Dave Filoni, if I'm correct. Him and some guy named Jim, whose last name escapes me. Um, they're now doing some most of the creative stuff there, and I guess Kathleen Kennedy may be getting the boot because of her
yeah,
interference. Because a lot of people were pissed off at the way Luke was portrayed in the Last Jedi there,
yeah. He
as
was
this
portrayed like a yeah. He was portrayed
reluctant
horribly.
coward. I mean, come on. Mark Hamill spoke out against it a lot. So we kind of got the wind of beforehand about how that movie was. Well, I'm glad to see that. For me, Rise of Skywalker, I kind of was able to correct some of that. Luke was able
Yeah,
to correct himself. He was always able to help Ray out. Get back to go to Exegol, and we all instead of Ray just doing all the hero's work herself, it was everybody else, including Finn, Poe, General Leia, and everybody else involved. You know.
and for the record, Ray claimed herself as as a Skywalker bullfrog.
Yes, definitely. Oh, Bullfrog, is Bullfrog with you?
No, because on his show, I think Monday, he was arguing with it's Ballsy saying that Ray was a Skywalker by blood. No, she was not. She
No, yeah,
claimed the name at
no.
the end.
Yeah, she claimed that at the end. She decided become the baby face. Which,
Oh
by the way,
man,
as you know, is a TR term for the wrestling hero. Instead
yeah.
of turning into an all-out heel, like now, wouldn't you say? When I have to mention this. Um, Go ahead. I'll be back in a couple of seconds. Or go ahead, say something, and then we'll get to the topic I want to talk about here.
Well, I felt like out of the all three of those sequels, I felt like the Force Awakens was the best one out of all three of them. Because I felt like Rise of Skywalker was good. I just they left a lot of plot holes that were not answered, and it was just a fucking mess. The second half of the film,
Ah, I'm back. All right.
but
So, yeah,
I felt like from the sequels era, I felt like the Force Awakens was the best one.
yeah. I would say yes, definitely. I have to agree. I mean, like, were you shocked when Han Solo got killed by his old son?
Yeah, like I didn't expect that to happen,
Neither did I.
but you could tell he did not want to do it.
Yeah. But then again, it was the Sith tradition, from what I understand. Kill
Yeah,
those who stand in your way. Yeah.
but that
Well,
confrontation could have been a lot better. But I like the way he was like, you know, Ben, like, where's my son and stuff.
yes. It helps. Shows goes to show how people get easily led into stuff like that.
Yep.
Well, I think we'll probably I'll probably end the show here pretty soon. Here, I'm going to upload. We're recording this, by the way, and I'm going to upload it for my channel here. I guess when you look at the 80's, I know we kind of got distracted with the Star Wars thing, but then again, it is fun to bring up. It's no
Yeah.
doubt about that because we're both big fans here. I've been watching a lot of Star Wars series, Star Wars comics, lore
I love
masters,
Star
stupid.
Wars,
Yeah,
man.
definitely learning about. I think this shit should probably come out with a Darth Vader movie.
That's what I keep
About
telling people.
yeah, and
Like
if they're
the
gonna come,
events.
yep,
Go ahead.
the
The
events between episode 3 and episode 4.
four. Yeah, like right. Like it should just show like right when the babies are born.
Yeah,
Like he's already Vader. Like how he's getting accustomed to the suit. Like him
you know,
crying over
his
Padme.
adventures, going to this planet for negotiations, this conflict with as it depicted in the comic series there.
Yeah, they should just do that before James Earl goes, man. He's already in his 90s.
Yeah, no, he's one of the most iconic guys out there and well
Like,
respected,
God.
established actor as
I
well.
mean, him in Rogue One was fucking fantastic.
Yeah,
I just loved it.
yeah. But if it's to say, and it is safe to say that Darth Vader is one of the first cyborgs in movie history. When you think
One
about
of
it,
one of the badasses of all time.
of course, next to well, of course, I was going to say the character of Steve Austin in the $60 million Man, played by Lee Majors, but that was television. So
Yeah.
yeah, right. Okay, I guess we'll probably end the show right here. There, Junebug, I want to thank you for being taking the time to do this thing with me. Yeah.
Thank you.
When are you going to be coming doing shows in your channel again?
I want to get a desktop, man.
Oh yeah, I remember you mentioned that on the Bullfrog show there.
Yeah, I don't want to do the PS4 thing
Yeah, I
anymore.
know, cause I know Dave Rose suggested that to YR a few times. He even mentioned it to me about getting the desktop because
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna sit down and talk with him because the guy knows his shit, bro. Like when it
YR.
comes to all of that, no, Dave Rose.
Yeah, definitely gotta give him credit.
Yeah, and like I'll tell him like if I rack enough cash up, I'll pay him, to help me out.
Yeah. All right, definitely. All right then, Junebug, it's a pleasure doing this show
Uh,
with you. We got to do it again sometime, definitely.
I really want to do a Star Wars ranking with you though.
All right, we can do ranking like movies and stuff there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's okay, ask me a Star Wars question. Go
No,
ahead ahead. Do.
I want to do that on the next show.
Oh, definitely, we could do that. When do you want to be able to? We
Uh,
contact you to do
I'm
this again.
I'm free Friday,
All right, definitely. We'll definitely do it on Friday. The
and
same way.
we can go live for that one. I don't mind
Definitely
going
for
live for
Shizzle, we'll definitely do that.
that. All right.
Definitely. All right. Thank you everybody for watching this program here. For myself and the mighty Junebug,
Yo.
give him some love as well. And shout out to Dave Rhodes out there, who's definitely one of the biggest providers of information out there. And
The most intellectual man of the community.
correct, absolutely, got to give him his props. All right,
All
I'm Dr.
right.
Earl for June, and along with Junebug. You guys have a good one. Bye
See
bye.
ya.